I guess we all learned a lot from that. So let's get into the main topic, Garrett.
Yep. So I'll put the link in YouTube again. One waiting person. Okay, at least it's back live. Yeah, so Jesse, HSCT Hanley, yesterday was saying that he's getting a weird number of venture capital funded affiliate businesses reach out lately, and I guess we've seen a rather interesting influx over the last year or so as well. I guess longer than that. Excuse me, thinking about it.
Yeah, a lot of like 5 years or so.
Yeah. Just the invest. I guess we can talk about it, but like the investment site or investment companies and stuff. Most are pivoting from their apps to websites. Crazy money being plowed into them. I would definitely agree with that. With really no hard SEO strategy. Yes, we can talk about that. All underestimate the competition, whether it's independent, solo marketer with years experience, whatever. He thinks, the wire cutter triggered this. I would say not. I think this has been going on longer than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing I thought with this one was it's this Jesse guy is like an advertising guy. So people like that are getting exposed to these inquiries now. It's spreading aggressively, and I think the number of sites that get started whenever there's a trend now, you could be one of the first people to talk about a trend. Like if cryptocurrency had come 10 years ago, there would be like 3 sites would have been started talking about it or something, or like because we were talking about crypto for like an hour earlier when Garrett was away. That's all we talked about, Garrett, by the way. We got an hour long cryptocurrency blog.
What's Bitcoin at right now?
8.7, I think.
Oh damn, I missed my floor. I was gonna buy it 7,500.
Like if you launched like when the organic trend came, if it had come 20 years ago, 10 years ago, there would have been like 2 organic blogs. But now when a trend hits, like 100 blogs hit the niche immediately. There's all these communities of people just talking about starting sites. There's people writing books about it, like MJ DeMarco's Millionaire Fastlane. That's all about building an authority site and getting rich. There's Builder Society. There's obviously, I can't remember Builder Society's competitor, but I'm not a member there, so I don't want to plug them anyway. They can fuck off. But you know what I mean? There's whole communities of people just building sites, authority sites. And it leads to just more competition. And then on top of that, you've got the existing established players. Like if Joe hadn't started his platform, he's the kind of person who used to run, like Joe Sinkwitz we had on the 24 hours, used to run 100 sites. They were spending 10 million a month, whatever god-awful number they were spending, making more, obviously. There's loads of people like that are extremely experienced with a team. And instead of running an SEO agency, they have, a team of 30 just building and developing their sites. And then there's these new players coming in who are either solo marketers in these communities. And then there's now, on top of that, there's VC money pouring in. Oh, screw this app shit. We can make, instead of, we'll try and make a unicorn and we'll risk 100 million to make $1 billion. We'll risk $1 million to make 30 million and we'll do it quicker.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought this was an interesting topic, is the increased competition. What impacts is it going to have? Is the budget for a new site now going to be, not that you have to spend $1 million, but that you have to compete with people who can't spend $1 million to win, even if you're in some random new niche?
Well, people who have past histories in giant VC funded companies who've exited, and like the Wirecutter, they didn't come out of the the starting blocks and get 300 badass editorial contextual links on the top sites on the planet by magic. They had connections and asked for it. These VC funded companies, like I was saying before, I sold some sites to one of these companies, and they're not doing their on-page job. They're not even worried about keyword research, but what they do have is the money to acquire the links, and they got the connections to get the links.
I think that's something we saw. Obviously, like, we're not the ones with the connections, but the VC firms coming to us for link building, where we want to do, like, no questions asked, we need 60 links to this site this month, and it's just like the amount of money with relatively no regard being thrown around is quite interesting to me.
The sites are doing well, though. I mean,
Yeah,
we have a small picture, but we're a small agency still, really. I mean, I don't know what we do, like 1,000 odd links a month or something. We're a small agency, but all their sites are doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, I don't think we have any clients who aren't doing quite well, at least. And on where they have big money and they can just do things like that. I mean, when you have a client who's like, oh yeah, I've just bought this site and we're going to do, and they just kind of like look at their numbers and they go, oh, we're going to do 80 links a month, I think, to start.
Can you guys hear the washing machine?
Yeah. Yeah. If you start from, you're trying to build something from scratch, like they've bought a medium-sized site to start with that was doing, like, say, 20 links a month when it was owned by someone else, and they ramp it up to 80. There's only 10 slots on page one. And, yeah, all right, you can say, oh, well, I'm going to go long tail, I'm going to do this. They can just suddenly figure out that there's some money in your long tail and put 10 blog posts up and they're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting how they can do so much without the kind of the knowledge of some of the people that are trying to compete, but the money kind of buys you a head start.
But what they're going to learn is that the ROI is not there. Like when you're not doing your on-page correctly and your keyword research, and you're trying to brute force yourself into the top 3 with just links, that's going to get costly. Like you're saying, all of your client sites do well because there's a financial barrier to entry to working with you.
But they can hire like you kind of alluded to earlier. They can hire word agents, and Ben will take care of that problem for them. They can throw money at the content too. So I wasn't just saying they're going to buy their way there with links. They can buy someone who can do the content. I mean, I'm sure if someone came to you with enough money, that you might even help them too. I mean, you were saying earlier in the show you're easily distracted by people waving large amounts of money in your face.
Yeah, I just lost the past week and a half to that.
So I'm sure if they came to you with, look, you need to fix this for us. There's your $30,000. I'm sure they could pinch you as well. I mean, money solves a lot of their problems without them having to worry, because that's their game. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't make Facebooks. They don't make video streaming apps. They don't make games. They throw money at people that make them, and when the team's got a shortfall, they bring someone in on the board because they have board member contacts. So they're like, well, you need a new head of content. This lady I know, she's used to work at, I don't know, the New York Times. Now she works at blah, blah, blah. I think we can get her for $1 million. I'm going to take care of that. And they just bring someone in. They can solve all of their problems with money.
Yeah, but you're right. Even if you go hire word agents and they nail your on page, my point is like the sites that I sold to one of these companies, they're not doing the keyword research. So like I covered the basic 50 fundamental articles you have to have on this site. The first thing they did was duplicate all of them because they just assumed they weren't. I don't know what they did. They didn't bother to check. But the other thing is
the SEO intern they had managing your site. It's like, well, I got to get some articles up, and I can't think of anything else.
But the other problem is that I'm just still not convinced the ROI is there for the amount of money that they're willing to throw around. Because
I absolutely agree. Like the incumbent strong competitors, like your Joe Sinkwitzes of this world, if he wanted to build his team again and do it again, if he sold IntelliFluence in 3 years' time for $100 million or something and went and did something else, he would be a stronger competitor than any of these VC firms. But for people starting out building, there's 2 types of competitor now. There's people with unlimited money and there's people with unlimited skill. It's a much, much tougher market for them, I think,
That's a good point.
with the VC money coming in.
But New York. So just to go back to the Wirecutter, New York Times paid $30 million. Is that right?
Roughly, yeah.
I think that was a bad deal. The Wirecutter was not clearing $1 million a year. I mean, because we're still talking about affiliate commissions for the kind of crap that they're selling.
Do you think someone at the New York Times thought So if they paid $30 million, you probably hope it's clearing 3 at least a year. And even if it wasn't, do you think the New York Times said, okay, we think for whatever reason the guy running this is a fucking idiot, and it should be clearing $10 million if we can employ our practices on it?
They did think something like that because the first thing they did was redesign the whole thing
Yeah.
and consolidate the home, whatever the other one was, the homeowner or whatever it was called.
Yeah, because they bought 2, didn't they? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think their logic would be that they're a content business. They think they're better at content than the Wirecutter was, and they're going to be able to fix it and make an extra. You know, if they make an extra 20%, it's worth $36 million immediately, and if they can keep doing that,
They have another conglomerate.
it doesn't have
in
to
a
be a
few
big
years.
win. I mean, if they get it to where it's worth $250 million, it's a good buy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. My opinion on the Wirecutter is they're on their way to destroying it because they're not destroying it, but it's not going to reach its potential. If you look at the redesign, it looks like a shitty affiliate site. And then one of the first things I noticed they started doing was going into the adult niches. So they've got like the best dildos, the best butt plugs, and those are literally the titles of their articles, and they were on the homepage. You know, that's not something I want to associate.
Yeah, so that I was going to say.
That's post-purchase. So that's what the New York Times brought in after they bought
When I
it.
said someone at
that's
the
what-
New York Times thinks they can go out and do all this shit, what do you think the odds are some less than prominent SEO guy had some clout for whatever reason and was like, we need to buy this motherfucker for $30 million. I'm the guy to fucking run it. Just watch. My affiliate site on Amazon makes like $2,000 a month. I can do this. Or something weird like that we'll never know about.
He put the bug in the right person's ear. That the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, do it and let Johnny be in charge of it. He won't fuck it up, I promise.
Yeah.
He won't sell.
He has so
dildos.
many affiliate sites, man. Like each one of them gets like 30 hits a month, and it adds up. But he knows what he's doing, and yeah. So, I don't know.
Well, remember when we first spoke about the Wirecutter? We had that chart which shows like the big media companies that own all these sites that people think are independent sites. It's part of the game. I mean, with them all ranking and all owned by big media companies, I guess the New York Times wanted to get into that game and be one of those big media companies that own all those brands. And you can't build them from scratch when you've got such a big shortfall in portfolios. So, and they're profitable. They're one of the few newspapers that do make a shitload of money. So picking up some purchases makes sense for them. Whether the Wirecutter was the right one or not, Jared might be right. It might have been a mistake to buy that particular one, but making purchases generally for the New York Times to get in that game is probably a smart play because they are a content business at least.
It was a good start because what'll happen is they'll have 5 of these Wirecutter style sites, and then when they decide they want to get into something a little more profitable, all they have to do is drop 5 site-wide footer links across the other ones, and bam, they've magically popped in on.
Yeah, that's true.
Free domination. That's what all these media companies, like you look at Vox Media, there's who owns the something like the Sports Barstool Network, and they've got like 600 sites.
Yeah,
all interlinked. It's like you'll never get. You hit a certain threshold where the snowball is rolling, and nobody will ever defeat them.
No, you
I
can't.
think, and here's how it works with newspapers as well. Like they have such a big core audience, they can bolt things on that make no sense. Like until I don't even remember the name of the app. What's the app everyone uses for dating now? For the swiping, Tinder. Yeah. Before Tinder, like one of the biggest dating sites in the UK was owned by the Guardian. It was just like Guardian Mates or something. They just decided they were going to launch one, bolted it onto the newspaper, and became one of the biggest dating sites in the country. Mm-hmm. Like when you've got an audience that big, you can bolt things on because you can kind of mention Wirecutter reviews. Like they can be talking about something in the New York Times and say, and if you're worried about organic mattresses for your kid, the Wirecutter has this review and link to it from the New York Times, and you're driving, 100,000 people to it. So every time it gets mentioned, there's actual. It's not just the link value. There's actual real traffic in abundance. Millions of readers. There's real traffic. You can just turn on like a tap to, those Wirecutter articles convert if they think they can send. Well, we can send an extra 1 million a month people to those articles, and you push the revenue up immediately.
And they'll start cutting direct deals with the suppliers too, the
Oh, New York
manufacturers.
Times has more clout. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll pump up the revenue significantly.
Yeah, the New York Times is more clout. That's the interesting thing. I think it's an interesting time because there is a real there's a lot of really competent people starting small sites and doing really, really well. But it is very, very competitive now. You know, if you've got sometimes there's 10 people and just the group of people that we all know. You know, looking at the same kind of niches and the same kind of things. And there's businesses that we all know as well. I mean, I won't, you know, plug them here. They're pretty good at marketing themselves. But there's businesses that build these sites. You know, they give you the off-the-shelf starter. Like, we'll get you 100 pages of content. We'll get you a keyword research, give you a niche, give you everything designed. You pay whatever for it, and then you get started. So you can get started now, like, super quickly with something to promote. Like, it gets easier and easier to get into the game at all.
Yeah.
But there's more and more competition from big people and experienced people. I think it's a really hard time. I mean, Vince said on the show a couple of months ago he thinks it's a really hard time to start from scratch.
Yeah, I've said it before too. You won't catch me starting from scratch ever again. I'll either buy a juiced up expired domain or I'll just flat out buy somebody else's site. But I'll never start from zero again. Because you're talking about, because like I was saying before, the lazy way for Google to handle a bunch of spammers is just throttle people's ability to rank for at least 12 months.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll have barely a trickle of traffic. You'll hit about month 9 to 12, and then wham, suddenly they let you go.
I mean, we still have clients say to us, "Oh, you know, I've bought like 5 links for 3 months, and I'm going to wait I'm going to wait a few months now because nothing's happening." It's like, well, what did you expect to happen? Your competitors are building 20 links a month to 100. Mm-hmm. You've tested 15. Like, you've fallen 300 links behind your biggest competitor and 60 links behind your smallest. Like, you've got to.
Hey, we better make sure those 3 links did their jobs, and because he has the secret sauce, actually being able to analyze that.
Well, I mean, it's something that's not their fault. It's just the way things have changed. Like, I'm not ragging on these people. Like, I understand why they have that mindset, because in the old days, no one was building links. No one was able to get good links. Your competitors were doing 10 a month. You know, some of the biggest sites in the UK travel industry were doing 15 links a month. Like, the ones that were number 1, 2, and 3 on Google. Because I used to read, I don't get it anymore. I used to be signed up for, like, there's an annual travel report in the UK. I used to share it with Garrett, and we read it together. The biggest company, smallest competitors are doing often 10, 15, 25 links a month. And like Jared said, unless you can differentiate your content and your keyword research so you're like that many tiers above them, you're just falling further behind. So people used to think, well, if I add 15 links, I'm going to see a big boost. These days, you can actually have fallen behind while you did that. So although the links have improved the authority of your site, your relative authority compared with your competitors is just constantly falling behind if you're in an industry where everyone's doing at least 20 a month.
And the problem is, too,
further behind. So you'll actually go down in ranking, even though you've built. There's some industries where you can build 100 links over the year and you'll go down 4 places on Google.
And that's the problem, too, is everybody's they're blowing their wad on the most competitive and valuable ranking they have instead of trying to sprinkle that impact across all the long tails that they actually have a chance at dominating. Yeah, and then, of course, they blame the link builders.
Well, we don't get a lot of blame. I mean, people are pretty. When you show
what's
people
our client retention rate, like 97%?
Yeah, we're somewhere up in the high 90s. Yeah, I mean, we don't get a lot of blame. People are pretty smart for the most part, and if you have a look at their competitors, sometimes they just have to shrug their shoulders, like Jared said, and look at a different strategy to make money from their site. You know, like, we're not going to rank number 1 with Garrett's site for candles. I mean, come on.
Maybe in 10 years.
Maybe in 10 years, yeah. But, you know, if that was our strategy, is like, right, we're going to rank number 1 for candles.
Yeah, that's.
What do we need? 200 links a month or something?
Yeah, we're going to need about $50,000 a month in content, $50,000 in links. Yeah. But it's not going to happen.
So yeah, I think what Jared was saying makes a lot of sense, and you just got to be pragmatic. And if you're expecting to move for a single word keyword or like a really aggressive 2 or 3 worder on tiny link budgets and tiny content budgets, you're just not being realistic in today's world. You're better off not ordering the stuff at all. You're better off just not doing it. Do something else.
Yeah, and there's a certain point where people who they think because they finally got the budget to throw at the link builders that's going to solve the problem, but it's not, because they haven't been spreading their content wings. They've not covered the entire breadth of the topic that they need authority on. All that stuff hasn't aged and baked into the algorithm. There's so many issues that, and this goes right back to what we were talking about with old money trying to step into the authority site game. There's certain situations where money just doesn't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to an algorithm, especially.
Well, I mean, where money has a big impact is you can do real shit that someone sat at home really struggles with. Like, they can be like, well, I want to try this crazy idea for $50,000 and it might get some press.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll try 6 of those a year because it's only $300,000. Who gives a fuck? You can't do that when you're starting your authority site. Like, we can't like make the world's biggest, I don't know, the world's biggest Guy Fawkes made entirely out of candles and take it to one of the towns in the UK where like they still do the crazy Guy Fawkes celebrations and then it doesn't work. And we've spent, 27,000 on candles.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do that when you've got a brand new site. It's insanity, but they can.
No,
they
most
can
of
buy
these
a candle
companies
site and be like, what can we do?
Yeah.
What stunt are we doing? How are we going to get some buzz? Because I know one of our VC-funded clients from many years ago, they got stuff blowing up on Reddit all the time, and they would take people's campaigns from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and redo them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're big money campaigns. You're talking, minimum $50,000 to just try one of these things. And some of them would stick on Reddit, some of them wouldn't. But the ones that stuck on Reddit, they'd get press coverage, like 100 amazing links.
Mm-hmm. I've hit number 1 on Reddit so many times, and all I do is go and I search up some of the highest upvoted posts in some obscure subreddit, and then I put it on a default subreddit and seed it at the right time. I don't cheat or anything.
Like the natural, you go to reddit.com, you're not logged in, you're number 1.
Garrett, we can't hear you, man.
Oh. Can you hear the shower? Now that that's what, I'm muting myself.
We're almost finished now, man. You can stop shouting.
I was gonna say, so you go to reddit.com, you're not logged in, you're number 1 for like that time period there. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So with Reddit, if you want to see a culmination of every subreddit, you can go to r/all, or there's what are called default subreddits, where everybody who creates an account gets subscribed to these default subreddits. So when you want to do a big ass promotion, you need to make sure you're in a default subreddit so it actually has a chance to rise to the top. But yeah.
I used to use Reddit so much for years, and I honestly don't know why. I just I think I kind of kicked it to the curb because it's so easy to get distracted with it. It
is, man. I mean, like I was saying, I'll hit top 10 of r/all, make $800, $900, but then you've got 100 crazy people who are now trying to call you out, sending you weird messages, trying to find your website, trying to get you banned from Reddit. So every time I'm on there, it's a freaking fiasco.
Well, it's not even that. I think it's like it came up in terms of just like Garrett's using Reddit. It came up on Builder Society. We were talking about should there be a Builder Society chat room, and everyone was like, well, that's what kills forums, the private chats that form, because no one posts on the forum. And if you look at like our big SEO, since there's been an our big SEO Slack channel,
yeah, it's done.
I don't go to our big SEO anymore. It's done. There's a few things get posted, but the Slack channel is where everything gets discussed.
Here's the reason you should continue to use Reddit though, and try to hit the front of the all. It's just the massive exposure, because not only do you get people,
for marketing. I was just responding to Garrett's comment about. I 100% agree with what you were saying. I mean, that's what our client was doing, and hugely successful.
Well, because what's happening is so many journalists don't want to do their job. They just want to go look at what's upvoted on Reddit and write an article about it. And if you're that person, you're guaranteed to get you some 10 to 20 nice editorials, and then that trickles out, and you end up with another 10 the next month. Shitload of
It's not even just the journalists being lazy, though. A lot of content houses use algorithmic, what do they call them? Like discovery tools, I guess. So they'll be monitoring Reddit, Twitter, all these platforms, and they discover the stories quicker than a human journalist could. So the writers have a list of things that the AI thinks is interesting, or the machine, it's not AI, the machine learning tool thinks is interesting. So obviously things that trend on Reddit, and if you hit the front page, you're going to be more likely to come up on those. And it's like what Lexi was talking about on the 24 hours of SEO with machine learning bots reading the emails that come in for pitches. Like if it's something that's like if your story's trending on Reddit, Twitter, and somewhere else, and you send your pitch in, when it's reading your pitch and it's got all the trending things that it's picked up elsewhere, that's going to end up in front of a journalist to write, just in the way the machine learning tools work. So I think hitting a lot of signals around how machine learning tools are discovering what's the story and what's not. Like Reddit's clearly going to be an important signal to the machines as well as to people.
Yeah.
So the journalists might not even realize that they're writing the story because it's trending on Reddit. The tool they use to discover stories is just telling them there's a story going on right now about this.
Yeah. Well, should we bang through this review I got quick and then get out of here?
Yeah, hit it.
So I'm going to talk about just really briefly QuickBooks and TurboTax. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are a small agency, or they're a freelancer, or they're just an independent guy doing SEO, whatever may have you. First, I'm going to say I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't professional legal advice or anything. You need to research what's best for your own situation. It's just my opinion, but I think it's good advice, just something to look into. I see a lot of people in the industry that don't have an LLC set up or an S-Corp or anything that gives them legal protection. That's something you should look into, because it's also financial asset protection if you do something that can get you into trouble. And it plays into TurboTax and QuickBooks because it's important to be keeping up on your bookkeeping, especially even if you're just a one-man band guy doing 40 grand a year starting out or something, or probably less, as we've all been at some point. Keeping up to date on your taxes and bookkeeping and stuff, because if you're serious about growing over, let's say, 7 years, from zero to a multi-million-dollar agency over 7 years, it's feasible over 7 years. But for the first 6 years, you never reported your taxes properly. You didn't do your bookkeeping properly. And let's say year 7 is the year that you hit $5 million in revenue as an agency, and you have employees and other contractors and all sorts of shit, and you get out of it. And they go back and they see that you were too lazy to do your bookkeeping and actually hire a bookkeeper or talk to an accountant, and it turns out you owe an extra $200,000 in taxes. And you're bankrupt all of a sudden, because I doubt you have 200 grand in savings or that much cash. Like, I guess at 5 million you do. You have that much cash flow, but it's going to hurt you really hard.
Not the first year.
Yeah. For Mike, I have a side business, like another LLC that I do all my. I use QuickBooks Self-Employed. It's awesome if you're a one-man band. Even if you're an agency where you, in the United States where you're 1099 people, it's good. They're all contractors. And it ties into TurboTax for like $15 a month. Super easy. Every time you pay for something, print out the receipt. This is my system. Put it in a binder by date, and then you enter it in TurboTax. It automatically tells you should be making your quarterly not interest payments, your quarterly estimated tax payments. So at the end of the year, you're not like, shit, I owe $12,000 in federal tax. I didn't make a single payment, and they're going to charge you a fee for not paying estimated taxes every quarter. And then you're like, shit, I didn't even save the 12 grand. So now you can go on a payment plan, but you're paying interest on that, plus failure to pay again. It's all really complicated, but the QuickBooks Self-Employed is relatively simple to use versus the full-blown QuickBooks. And it's perfectly fine for someone that is just a one-man band where it's super concise. You have expenses and you have income. And what more do you need as an SEO working out of your house or whatever? But just keeping those files up to date and making sure it's going to help you personally. No one likes doing bookkeeping. Well, I guess accountants and bookkeepers do, but I don't like to.
I don't know. I don't know. They don't like it either. They like the money you pay them.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah. And even if you just want to put your bookkeeping, it's like you want to use an accountant because you don't feel comfortable doing your business assets, or not assets, but your business taxes. Just put in the QuickBooks the entire year, and that's going to save you $3,000 on paying your accountant to do the bookkeeping. And you just send them the files, and they file the taxes, and they look over everything and make sure there's no red flags, or, oh, how come you didn't write this off, or you didn't deduct that, and you don't have any transaction for that. That's a common deduction. And there's a lot of ways you can go for it, but I know there's free alternatives or cheaper alternatives out there, like FreshBooks and stuff, but honestly, it's, from what I've used them both, and QuickBooks is way easier to use than FreshBooks, and it's more widely supported. And for $17 a month for that specific LLC, to roll it into TurboTax, where it pretty much combines all the data anyways all year. So once you get to TurboTax, it's like already all filled out, and it takes 10 minutes to do your taxes. And I think it's pretty cool, and a lot of people should be utilizing that stuff in their business, and not just for financial reasons, but legal reasons as well. But once again, I'm not a lawyer or an accountant or a professional.
So you don't look like a lawyer. It's okay. You don't have to say it.
So research yourself. Talk to an accountant if you're not comfortable, because they will charge you money. Some are good, some are bad. I've had bad accountants that cost me a lot of money. So do your research.
Write your own plugins, change your own oil, do your own taxes.
Yeah.
And if you're changing your own oil, always use a fresh hammer.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what they say, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like an oil plug.
Fuck.
I can definitely agree with that.
Well, I think that's all I got. Thanks for coming on, Jared. Appreciate it. I had to dip away for a little bit. Ben's getting married this weekend, so make sure everyone sends them obnoxious emails about getting married. And
He'd especially like some orders in over the weekend. If any of you guys are start making a massive order from Word Agents, send them in on Saturday morning. Follow it up with a couple of text messages just to make sure he's received it and processed it right away.
Gotta pay for that wedding somehow, right?
Gotta pay for it somehow, guys. Help him out.
And the coming kids.
Yeah, I heard he was having 17 kids. So
well, yeah, you better order like 1 million words each for those 3 people watching. But anyways, don't forget to check out the 24 Hours of SEO stuff if you haven't yet. 24hoursofseo.com. Charity is still open, or the fundraising pages are still open, obviously. So if you do watch,
replays are going up. If you sign up, 24 the number, then hoursofseo.com. Sign up. It goes straight to the replays page. They're going to be going up at the rate of around 2 every 3 or 4 days. Please share it, promote it, get more people signed up, more people watching the replays. It's better than any SEO conference you've ever been to, because everyone was doing it for charity. There was no promotion, no bullshit, just great value the whole way through.
There was definitely a lot of stuff that doesn't get talked about ever. I'm not saying the whole 24 hours was, but there was definitely stuff that never gets talked about just for charity. And there was stuff that you would have paid $1,500 to hear about, and you're going to get it for free. So.
And last chance to get your tickets soon, I guess, for LeadsCon Las Vegas, if you want to come and meet us out there. I can't remember the dates now. When is it? What dates is it?
It's the 5th through the 7th. But we get in about 11 p.m. Vegas time on that Sunday the 4th, and then fly out that morning on Thursday the 8th. But we'll be around.
yeah, if you want to meet up with us, give us a shout. It'd be really cool to catch up with some of our viewers. We've
I guess our thing is
lot
we
of-
always buy people drinks, so if you want a free drink, we're good for
Yeah,
that
yeah.
at least.
only if it's an old fashioned though,
hmm
or if you want a hammer or an oil change. I trust Garrett with that a little bit more. Yeah, he knows how to make a race car. He can definitely change your oil. I know how to hit things with a hammer. I definitely can't change your oil. But you know, smash that like button. Thank you for
Yep.
joining.
All right, guys. See you later.